Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we'll be exploring the world of food and cooking through two real conversations. So get ready to maybe learn some tasty new vocabulary along the way.
You know, it's amazing to me how much we can learn about people just by listening to them talk about food. Like, it's a window into their culture and their memories, even their personalities.
Yeah, like every dish has a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for our first taste, let's listen in on Megan and Chris.
Okay.
They're talking about their adventures in the kitchen.
Sounds fun.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey Megan, I heard you've been trying some new recipes lately. How's it going?
It's been great. I'm experimenting with different types of cuisine. Last week, I made Italian pasta, and this week, I'm trying out a spicy Mexican dish.
That sounds delicious. Are you following recipes online?
Yes, I find a lot of good recipes on food blogs and cooking apps. Watching cooking videos also helps. They make it so easy to follow along step by step.
Same here. I tried making a Japanese stir-fry the other day. Cooking at home is fun, and it's usually healthier than eating out.
Definitely. When you cook at home, you know exactly what goes into your food. I've started making my own sauces and salad dressings. They taste so much fresher than store-bought ones.
That's a great idea. Homemade dressings are way better than the ones in bottles. Plus, you can customize them to your taste.
Exactly. I've also been experimenting with spices and herbs to add more flavor to my dishes. It's amazing how a little spice can transform a meal.
That's true. I tried using fresh basil and rosemary in my pasta sauce, and it made such a difference.
Yes, fresh ingredients make everything taste better. Do you have any cooking tips for someone like me who's still learning?
My biggest tip is to have fun with it. Cooking is all about experimenting and not being afraid to make mistakes. And remember, practice makes perfect.
Great advice, Chris. Maybe one day I'll have you over to taste one of my dishes.
I'd love that. I'll bring dessert.
Oh.
Wow, they sound like they really love to cook.
Yeah, they do.
One word that really stood out to me was recipes. Recipes, recipes, recipes. What exactly are they, and why are they so important when we're cooking?
Well, you can think of a recipe as like a set of instructions for cooking a dish, like a treasure map leading you to delicious culinary treasure.
Ooh, I like that. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So they tell you what ingredients to use, how much of each ingredient to use, and the steps to follow.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Now, both Megan and Chris talk about using fresh ingredients.
Hmm.
Fresh ingredients, fresh ingredients, fresh
Yeah.
ingredients. Why is it such a big deal to use fresh ingredients?
Well, fresh ingredients just taste better. They haven't been processed or preserved, so they keep all their natural flavors and colors and textures.
Right.
It's like, think about biting into a tomato fresh from the garden, all juicy and ripe, versus like a pale, mushy one from a can.
Yeah.
The difference is huge.
I totally agree. There's nothing like a sun-ripened tomato.
Yeah.
Chris also mentioned seasoning. Seasoning.
Yeah.
What exactly does seasoning involve, and how does it transform a dish?
Seasoning is like adding a sprinkle of magic to your food, It's how you make the natural flavors of your ingredients better by adding spices, herbs, salt, pepper, or other flavorings. The right seasoning can make a dish amazing.
So it's like you're trying to find that perfect harmony of flavors.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, Megan mentioned that she loves using aromatic herbs in her cooking. Aromatic. What makes an herb aromatic?
Okay, so think about walking through a garden and being surrounded by all these nice smells, right?
Yeah.
Aromatic herbs are the ones that release a strong, pleasant fragrance when you cook them or crush them.
Okay.
They add a whole other dimension to your food.
So it's not just about the taste then, it's about the smell too.
Yeah, it's a full sensory experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
Chris mentioned something about making his own salad dressings at home because they're homemade. Homemade. What are some of the benefits of making things from scratch?
Well, there's just something so satisfying about making things yourself, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
Homemade dishes are made with love and care, and you have control over all the ingredients and how it tastes. Plus, it's a great way to impress your family and friends.
Totally. There's nothing like a homemade meal to show someone you care. Now, one word that popped up a few times was marinate. Marinate. What does it mean to marinate something?
So imagine you're giving your food like a relaxing spa treatment, Marinating is when you soak your food, usually meat or vegetables, in a seasoned liquid that's called a marinade.
Okay.
And what that does is it helps add flavor to the food, but it can also tenderize tougher cuts of meat, making them juicier and more delicious.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, on to our second conversation. We're joining Jack and Mia as they talk about a delicious pasta dish that Jack made.
Ooh, I'm hungry already.
Me too. Okay.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
Hey, Mia, I just tried a new recipe, and it was absolutely mouth-watering.
Really? What kind of cuisine was it?
Italian. I made a savory, rich-flavored pasta with a homemade sauce. I even used fresh ingredients for everything.
Sounds delicious. Did you use any special seasoning?
Yes, I marinated the veggies with herbs. The aroma, while it was simmering, was amazing.
I bet. Did you make an appetizer too?
Yep. I started with a small, crispy bruschetta as an appetizer and then moved on to the entree, and I garnished the pasta with basil and lemon zest.
You're making me hungry. I have such a sweet tooth, though. Maybe I'd add a dessert.
For sure. Next time I'll bake a cake for dessert. I'm still working on getting my baking just right, but I'm excited to try.
It sounds like you're learning a lot. Cooking really is all about experimenting.
Totally. I just love trying new flavors, especially with umami-rich ingredients like mushrooms.
Well, count me in for the next taste test. I'll bring something crispy and tender. Maybe some baked fries.
Jack described his dish as mouth-watering. Mouth-watering, mouth-watering, mouth-watering.
You know when you see a really delicious piece of cake or a perfectly cooked steak, and it looks so good you can almost taste it?
Yeah.
That's mouth-watering. It means something looks or sounds so delicious that it makes your mouth water.
Oh, you're making me hungry. Jack also mentioned Italian cuisine. Cuisine. What exactly is a cuisine, and what makes Italian cuisine so unique?
A cuisine is basically a specific style of cooking that comes from a certain region or country, like Italian cuisine.
Okay.
For example, it's known for using fresh ingredients, herbs, olive oil, and pasta. And each region in Italy has its own unique flavors and ingredients, like a culinary fingerprint.
I like that.
Okay.
Now, Jack used the word savory to describe his pasta dish. Savory, savory, savory. What does it mean for a dish to be savory?
Savory is like the opposite of sweet. Think of flavors like salty, spicy, earthy, or umami, that really rich savory taste you get from mushrooms or aged cheese. Savory dishes are often really hearty and satisfying, like a nice juicy steak or a rich stew.
Oh, man, now you're really making me hungry.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's a good thing. Jack also used the phrase rich flavored to describe his pasta. Rich flavored, rich flavored, rich flavored. How is that different from just saying something is flavorful?
Well, rich flavored means it has a deep, complex flavor, like many layers of flavor hitting your taste buds. You get rich flavors from things like slow cooking or layering spices or using ingredients that are known for having really intense flavors.
So it's not just like a one-note flavor. It's more.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, remember when we talked about fresh ingredients before? Well, Jack mentioned them again in this conversation.
He did.
He really emphasized how important they are when he's cooking.
Yeah.
Why do you think he keeps coming back to that idea?
I think it's because fresh ingredients are at the heart of good cooking, especially in cuisines like Italian, where simple and high-quality ingredients are really important. Fresh ingredients just bring a dish to life, They make it shine.
I agree. And, Jack also mentioned that he seasoned his vegetables.
Yeah.
Seasoning. We talked about this before, but could you remind us why seasoning is so important?
Yeah.
Especially for vegetables.
So vegetables have their own natural sweetness, but they can also be a little bit bland sometimes if you don't season them.
Yes.
Seasoning is how we wake up those flavors. It's like you're giving them a little oomph and making them more exciting to eat. It's all about finding the right balance so that you make the dish taste better, but don't cover up the natural flavors of the vegetables.
That's a good point. So seasoning gives those veggies a chance to, really stand out, right?
Exactly.
Now, Jack mentioned that he marinated his vegetables. Marinate. We already talked about this word. But besides marinating meat, what are some other ways you can use marinades?
You can use them for pretty much anything. Tofu, tempeh, vegetables. You can even marinate some fruits.
Oh, wow.
They're a great way to just add some extra flavor to your food.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've never thought about marinating fruit. I'll have to try that. Jack also talked about adding an appetizer to his pasta meal. Appetizer.
Yeah.
What exactly is an appetizer, and why are they such a fun part of a meal?
It's like a little taste of what's to come,
Mm-hmm.
a way to get your taste buds excited for the main course.
I like that.
Usually appetizers are small dishes, perfect for sharing,
Okay.
and a great way to start a meal.
Yeah, like a little burst of flavor to whet your appetite.
Exactly.
And then speaking of the main event, Jack called his pasta dish the entree. Entree, entree, entree. Is that just a fancy way of saying the main course?
You got it. The entree is the star of the show. It's the main dish.
Okay.
And that's usually the most substantial part of the meal and where the chef can show off their skills.
Okay. And then to add that final touch, Jack mentioned garnishing his pasta. Garnish! 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 What's the point of garnishing? Is it just to make the food look pretty, or does it actually add flavor?
You can think of a garnish as like the cherry on top of a sundae. It's that final touch that makes a dish look more appealing.
Okay.
But garnishes can also add little bursts of flavor or texture. A sprinkle of herbs, a drizzle of sauce, or even some edible flowers can make all the difference.
So it's like a little piece of art on your plate.
Exactly.
That's so cool. It's amazing to me how much these words tell us about our relationship with food. Like, it's not just about eating to survive. It's about culture and creativity and connecting with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Food brings people together.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned so much already. And I bet our listener is feeling inspired to try out some of these new words in their own kitchen adventures, right?
I hope so. I mean, the best way to understand food is to actually get in the kitchen and cook, right?
Totally.
And the more you learn about food, the more you realize how much there is to discover. It's really a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I love that. They're like a constant culinary adventure.
Exactly.
Now, thinking back to those conversations, one thing that really struck me was how Jack and Mia used such vivid language when they were talking about food. Like when Jack said his pasta was mouth-watering. Mouth-watering, mouth-watering, mouth-watering. It's such a powerful word.
It is. It really makes you feel like you can almost taste the food just from the description.
Exactly. So what are some other words we could use to really bring those delicious descriptions to life?
Instead of mouth-watering, you could say something is tantalizing or tempting. Tantalizing, tantalizing, tantalizing. Tempting, tempting, tempting. They both make it sound so irresistible, like you can't wait to take a bite.
Ooh, I like those.
Yeah.
Remember how Jack called his dish Italian cuisine?
Uh-huh.
Cuisine, cuisine, cuisine. What are some other ways we could describe a style of cooking that's specific to a certain region or country?
We could use words like gastronomy or culinary traditions. Gastronomy, gastronomy, gastronomy. Culinary traditions, culinary traditions, culinary traditions. They both capture that sense of a region's unique approach to food, Their special flavor.
Oh, gastronomy sounds so sophisticated. I'm definitely adding that one to my vocabulary.
Yeah.
And remember how Jack described his pasta as savory, 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 savory. Are there other words we could use to describe those delicious, non-sweet flavors?
Absolutely. You could say something is hearty or robust. Hearty, hearty, hearty. Robust, robust, robust. These words kind of suggest a depth and complexity of flavor that goes beyond just being salty or spicy.
Yeah, like the flavor really sticks with you.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, both Megan and Chris talked about using fresh ingredients, and we know how important that is. Fresh ingredients, fresh ingredients, fresh ingredients. What are some other ways we could emphasize the freshness and quality of the ingredients that we use?
You could use words like seasonal or locally sourced. Seasonal. Locally sourced, locally sourced, locally sourced. These terms highlight that connection between food and the place where it comes from.
Yeah, because there's something really special about eating food that's in season and grown nearby. It just tastes more vibrant and alive.
It does.
Now, Chris really stressed seasoning, which we know is key to making food taste amazing. Seasoning, seasoning, seasoning. What are some other verbs we could use to describe the act of adding those extra bursts of flavor?
Instead of seasoning, you could say that you spice, flavor, or enhance your dishes. Spice, spice, spice. Flavor, flavor, flavor. Enhance, enhance, enhance. They all emphasize how seasoning can really transform the food.
It's like you're taking those basic ingredients and turning them into something truly special, like magic. And remember how both Megan and Chris mentioned marinating. Marinate, marinate, marinate. What are some other words that we could use to describe that process of soaking food in a flavorful liquid?
Steep or soak could work. Steep, steep, steep. Soak, soak, soak. Like you're letting those flavors really soak into the food.
Oh, yeah, like a nice flavorful bath.
Yeah.
Now, Jack mentioned serving an appetizer before his pasta dish. Appetizer, appetizer, appetizer. What are some other words we could use for those tempting little bites that get a meal started?
We could use starter or hors d'oeuvre. Starter, 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 hors d'oeuvre, hors d'oeuvre, hors d'oeuvre, hors d'oeuvre. They both create a sense of anticipation for the rest of the meal.
Ooh, I love hors d'oeuvre. It makes me feel so fancy. And speaking of fancy, remember how Jack called his pasta the entree? Entree, entree, entree. What are some other ways we could refer to the main course of a meal?
You could call it the main course or even the main event. Main course, main course, main course, the main event, the main event, the main event. They highlight how important this dish is in the whole meal.
Yeah, it's like the star of the show. And finally, remember how Jack talked about garnishing his pasta? Garnish, garnish, garnish. What are some other words we could use for those finishing touches that make a dish look so appealing?
We could say adorn or decorate. Adorn, 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 decorate, decorate, decorate.
Right.
It's like you're adding those final artistic touches to your masterpiece.
I love that. So we've explored a lot of great vocabulary today, but what I find really fascinating is how these words connect to these bigger ideas about food and cooking.
I agree. It's not just about memorizing words. It's about understanding what they mean and how we use them to talk about food.
Exactly. Like when we talk about fresh ingredients, we're not just talking about how something tastes. We're talking about a whole approach to cooking that values quality and seasonality and supporting local farmers.
You're right. It's about making thoughtful choices about where our food comes from.
And it's about putting our own personal spin on things. Like when Chris talked about making his own salad dressings because they're homemade. Homemade, homemade, homemade. It's not just about convenience. It's about taking pride in creating something from scratch and making it your own.
Absolutely. And there's just something really special about sharing a homemade meal with others.
Yeah, it's a way to connect with people.
It is. It's like you're sharing a part of yourself, your creativity, and your passion for food with everyone at the table.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Thinking back to those conversations with Megan, Chris, Jack, and Mia, it's clear that they're all really passionate about food and cooking. And I love how they use language to express that passion, like they're painting pictures with their words.
I know. It's inspiring to see how much they enjoy exploring new flavors and experimenting in the kitchen.
Yeah, it reminds us that there's always something new to learn and try in the world of food and cooking. It's an endless adventure.
Definitely. So now that we've talked about vocabulary and how it connects to our experiences with food, I thought it might be fun to shift gears a bit and talk about some of the more practical aspects of food and cooking.
Ooh, I like that.
We've been focusing on the words, but now I think it's time to dive into some essential skills and techniques that every home cook should know.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Now, before we wrap things up, I think it would be fun to take a moment to think about our own personal journeys with food. What are some of our favorite food memories? Those dishes that transport us back to special times and places.
Ooh, I love that idea. It's like every dish has a story to tell.
One of my most cherished food memories is my grandmother's chicken soup. It was such a simple dish, but it was made with so much love.
Oh, that's sweet.
The smell of chicken and vegetables simmering on the stove would fill the whole house, and the taste was pure comfort. It brings me right back to my childhood. You know, food really has this amazing power to evoke memories and emotions.
It really does. What about you? What's one of your most memorable food experiences?
I have such a vivid memory of this amazing bowl of ramen I had in Japan a few years ago.
Oh, tell me more.
I was walking through this bustling market, just taking in all the sights and smells. I found this little stall selling freshly made ramen, and I just had to try it. The broth was so savory, the noodles were perfectly chewy, the pork was so tender, and there was this perfectly cooked egg on top.
Oh, man, it sounds incredible. What made it so special? Was it just the taste?
The taste was amazing, but it was more than that. It was the whole experience, the energy of the market, the friendly vendor, the steaming bowl of ramen in my hands. It was pure culinary bliss. It was like this perfect moment in time.
It sounds like a truly immersive experience. It's amazing how food can transport us to different times and places.
It really is, and I think that's what makes food so fascinating. It's more than just something we eat. It connects us to our past, our present, and even our future.
I love that. Yeah, it really is amazing how food can bring back those memories. Like each dish has a whole story behind it, more than just what's on the plate.
I agree. And when we take the time to really think about those stories, those cultural and historical things that have shaped how we cook and eat, it helps us connect with food in a much deeper way.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's funny, even something as simple as choosing to use fresh ingredients can tell a story. Fresh ingredients, fresh ingredients, fresh ingredients. It shows that you really care about quality and eating things that are in season and supporting local farmers, things like that.
That's a really good point. It reminds us that cooking isn't just about following a recipe. It's about making choices that show what we value.
And it's about making things your own too, right? Like when Chris was talking about making his own salad dressings from scratch because they're homemade. Homemade, homemade, homemade. It's not just about convenience. It's about having that pride in making something from scratch, putting your own personal touch on it.
Exactly. And there's nothing quite like sharing a meal that you made yourself with other people.
It's a way of showing you care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about connecting with people. Like you're sharing a piece of yourself, your creativity, and love for food with everyone at the table.
That's such a nice way to think about it. Listening back to our conversations with Megan and Chris and Jack and Mia, it's clear that they really love food and cooking.
Yeah.
And I love how they use language to express that passion. It's like they're painting pictures with words.
I know. It's so inspiring to see them trying new things and having fun in the kitchen.
It's a good reminder that we can all learn and try new things when it comes to food. It's an adventure that never ends.
Absolutely. Well, we've had a lot of fun exploring the world of food and cooking today, from learning new words to thinking about our own food journeys.
It's been delicious.
It has.
And I hope our listeners feeling inspired to go on their own culinary adventure, trying new flavors and recipes, maybe even inventing some of their own.
I hope so too. And remember, the most important ingredient is always passion, whether you're an experienced cook or just starting out.
So well said. Thanks for joining us for this delicious journey into the world of food and cooking.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time.
Bon appétit!